This is Whiskey Whereabouts. I'm Tim, and it's the holiday season as this video drops, and that is sherry season, or at least for you and me, sherry matured whiskey season. And so I set out to build out a list of the top 5 fully sherry matured Scotch whiskies under $100, and I found out that this is not as easy as you might think. There's a reason. I will explain. My whiskey journey has taken me to Scotland and back. I've explored whiskey education, tastings, and distilleries from Islay to Speyside. And now my journey continues here, with you, on Whiskey Whereabouts. So one of the most common tasting notes you'll see describing a fully sherry matured Scotch whiskey, especially if it's from somebody in the UK, is Christmas cake notes, right? And it's the spices, along with the alcohol and the sweetness and the like that makes this comparison. So sherry matured Scotch whiskey makes a really nice companion during the holiday season. I know I've had it Christmas Day, after dinner, by the tree. It's pretty cozy, and I set out to build out a list of the top 5 fully sherry matured whiskeys under $100. And I chose 100 for a reason. Because right over 100, we get a ton of these non-age stated cask strength, what we call sherry bombs, your Aberlour, Abernads, and the like. And I wanted to cut those, some of those out and get under the 100. And oftentimes when we have these, 12-year partially sherry, you'll see a lot of these double cask matured. That's the sort of standard profile. There's some bourbon, there's some sherry, especially that entry 12 years. So I wanted to make a challenge where I had to find some whiskeys that didn't cross this threshold that are fully sherry matured. And it became clear to me that this was easier said than done. And the reason is that sherry casks are expensive. They cost a lot. There's been a long history of sherry and the rise and sort of fall of sherry consumption along with Scotch whiskey. Doesn't matter. In the modern day today, a sherry cask costs more than a bourbon cask. How much more? There's this thing that people say online a lot about it's 10 times the cost. The first thing that doesn't take into account is that a sherry butt, are we talking about sherry butt? Are we talking about a hogshead? People don't really seem to specify, but a sherry butt is 500 liters, and a bourbon barrel is about 200. It's less than half the size. So we can immediately, for purposes of, passing that cost on to us buying the whiskey, depending on the volume of the whiskey in it, we can sort of cut that in half right from the beginning. There's all kinds of variables, and I see a lot of unreliable information online. People talking about casks and the cost of casks, but some of these may be new casks, and we're not talking about new casks. We're talking about casks. We're talking about a bourbon cask barrel that has been used to age bourbon before we use it for Scotch whiskey. We're not talking about virgin oak barrels. And there are a bunch of different variables, but I see information from all over the place that could be as low as $200 for a used bourbon barrel, as much as $2,000 for a sherry bottle. That's where this 10. I think that's where this 10 times comes in. But there's plenty of variables in here, and cutting it in half. And look at these numbers. It looks like it's at least twice as much, and maybe as much as 5 times as much. The point is that sherry casks are more expensive, even when you sort of prorate out the volume, than a bourbon barrel. Let me get started, and I am going to have to start, like I said, not the easiest list in the world to build, and I'm going to start with some entry sort of level type specs here. Glendronach 12-year is, like all the Glendronachs, is fully matured in sherry. It's PX and Oloroso. It is no color added, I believe, but chill filtered, question mark with this Glendronach, but it's only 43%. So, but this one you can get for about $70 or so in the U.S. So I like the Oloroso and PX that they often use. I've reviewed the Parliament very, very favorably. I have it over my shoulder back there. That's 21-year whiskey with whiskey that's older than that in the vatting. So that's going to be number 5 on the list. That's where we're starting here. Number 4, and it's going to be the Glenfarclas 12-year. So Glenfarclas is a family-owned distillery in Speyside, and they mature their whiskeys in sherry. But this is only a 43% whiskey. It's fully Oloroso matured. Problem, it's not cheap. Not over here. This is over $85, and that's a lot to pay for 43% whiskey. But I will say that it certainly has a character, and it certainly is sort of representative of the Glenfarclas kind of profile, even at that 12 years. So those are two. We got age statements. That's nice. But we couldn't really get a lot of ABV here. And we're knocking on the door of, more than $85 on one of them. Number 3 on the list, I'm going to go a little bit more, and we're going to get some ABV here. 55.5%, but you know what that means? I'm probably going to trade some years. So I've got a non-age stated whiskey from Aaron. Aaron Sherry Cask, the Bodega, 55.8%. It's not age stated. This is more than $90. It's coming real close to the $100. But now we're getting the other profile I was talking about at the beginning, much closer to that big sort of Abu Nad, sort of sherry bomb type profile. But you've got that sort of craft distillery, Aaron. This is, if you're looking for this profile, this is a nice one. You're getting a lot of whiskey in terms of the value that you invested in that. So that's going to be number 3. Number 2, this one's fully Oloroso matured. It's Tamdu. It is the batch strength. So they have a succession of batches. Batch 6 was 56.8%. I believe it was majority first fill Oloroso, they say. This is a representative of the type of whiskey I was talking about. So cask strength sherry bomb, fully sherry matured. I see it right at $100, but I've seen it more than one place at right at $100. So I'm going to include it. Might spill over. You're very close to that Aaron. It's a sort of a preference. I think of this whiskey as not as in your face as like an Abu Nad, the Tamdu batch strength. I haven't had it in a couple of batches, but I did like the last batch I had. I'm going to say this number 2. So something has to beat that. And when you're thinking about a lot of these big sort of sherry whiskeys, I mean, the Glenfarclas 105 and the Abu Nad are obviously over the price category. But you know what is under the price category is age-stated whiskey from Islay from Kilchoman. The Loch Gorm, starting with this year, the 2025 edition, has a 10-year age statement on it. This is a batch made up of 23 sherry butts. So they call it a limited release, but it pretty much comes out annually. It's a fully sherry matured Kilchoman, properly presented across the board, 46% obviously. So it's limited, but it's annual. So I felt like I could include it. That's a really nice whiskey for it's between, usually I see it between $85 and $90. With an age statement on it now, with those specs, and it's fully sherry matured, given what we're seeing from some of these other whiskeys in sort of the price category, that is definitely my pick. It's Islay peated whiskey. Your mileage may vary. The last 2 were unpeated whiskeys, so you have those to choose from. But if you have some other ideas, or in your market you can get something else fully sherry matured under that threshold, let us know in the comments. And in the meantime, make sure you hit this big button over here and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.